so is everyone comfortable with those two principles before we move forward? Because I've thrown a lot at you, so I just make sure everybody's okay. So can we get 3 claps? Everybody has it? All right, everybody good? All right.
Yep, we're good.
So we're going to go into honoring the game. And as you see on this PowerPoint, the word roots. Take a deep breath. Don't worry about it. We're not going to go through each letter and have this long, drawn-out conversation about it. We're going to put roots in a nutshell, and then we're going to really open it up for a conversation. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is a workshop, not for me to lecture, so we're just going to go through it little by little. Hey, Ruben, how are you?
Hi, Alan. Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Sounds windy there, Ruben.
Oh,
He just found his shoe. We're all right.
There you go. Emily's like, what shoe? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
right, yeah. All right, so we have, as you see, it says roots, and it's an acronym. And before we get into what the acronym's about, I want you all to just think about your sport. I know some of you in the room may coach multiple sports, but think about your sports, your particular sport, and the history of your sport before we really get into the roots of it all. The history of your sport really brings the root. It's like the soil before it's like the seeds you put into the soil before the tree starts to grow. Right. And so you have all this, you're laying this foundation, you have the roots there, and then it's time for it to grow. So you're going to see when we talk about, say, R and the rules of the game, or rules change over a course of time. And so some people can get stuck in rules from the past to where rules are now. And so if we talk about the rules of the game of where you are now, do you as coaches feel comfortable where you're at now as coaches coaching the game of where it's at in any of the sports that you play? Because rules have changed. So are you comfortable where rules are constantly right now? No, I see his head shaking. No. Why is that? Why is that?
I'm just specific to my sport right now. I'm coaching high school lacrosse, and I feel like the rules change every season, which is really difficult to keep up with, let alone from a player point of view, but the officials are always trying to make it safer. So there are rules that are different this season than there were last season. And the rules are a lot different than when these girls played in middle school. So sometimes I'm not even sure exactly what the ref is calling when they make a call. So we really have to help our players just play through the calls and trust the referee. And then later on, halfway through, I'll think, wait, that's not even the right call. So I think it's one of the most difficult games because I feel like in basketball, the rules are the rules. It's been the rules since the beginning. They don't change that much. But I don't know. I feel like in the game of lacrosse, it's just constantly changing rules.
Good. Thank you for that feedback, because the rules do constantly change in certain sports. And what we have to, as coaches, as you said, sometimes take that step back. And in the middle of a game, you might say, wait, that rule shouldn't be applied in this day and age in this game because the rule wasn't like that 6 months ago or a year ago. How do we as coaches keep our composure during the time of change with all the rules of the game of going on now? And so we'll look at the rules of the game, and I'm going to give you a scenario, and then we'll go through the rest of the letters as we discuss things. So there's been a bad call, and the opposing coach has been riding a ref the entire game. It seems it's been working for this particular coach, that he's just been riding this guy. Now in the final moments of this close game, the official makes a horrible call against your team. What do you do? Feel free. Anyone can answer that question. You know the rules of the game. You know that this coach gets away with all of this, the yelling, the screaming, the slamming of the clipboard. How do you handle the bad call situation?
well, I'll take a stab at it. I suppose the ref knows the rules too. He might even know them better than I do. Probably does if he's an official. Even when I was a college coach, the referees they knew the rules better than me. And reffing's hard. Judgment calls, and I know that sometimes I get distracted by this, and I found that it never helped my team because I'd start worried about things we couldn't control, and then my players would jump on the bandwagon, and before you knew it, we weren't thinking about beating the other team. We were thinking about how lousy the refs were, making excuses. So I try to keep, going forward, I try to keep their focus on things we can control, and I try to be a model of playing through the call. That's what I do.
Ruben, let me ask you a question. If you're coaching in a league and you've seen this particular coach exhibit this behavior, during your games, maybe you've coached against this guy's team a couple of times each year, or you've gone to other games and seen this guy's behavior in different games. Do you find that you may hold some memories over how this guy coaches, and do you feel that maybe this behavior he can get away with a little bit more, and your behavior is a little bit different where you don't get those calls?
I think officials can be affected both ways. I think they can be, you work the officials, right? The old saying, you got to work the officials, and then you get the next call. I think that is true sometimes. I think officials are human, and they're subject to pressure, and but I think it can also work the other way, where officials, if you treat them respectfully over time, when push comes to shove, they might give you the benefit of the doubt. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, Allan. The other thing is, as far as how I feel about that coach, I definitely don't have as much respect for a coach that's a whiner and a complainer, and come on, just let's play the game and see which team wins. So I think that's part of what you asked me too about my memory of coaches like that.
Absolutely, I threw that question out because that takes care of the two O's in Roots. That's your opponent, and then also the officials, and so those are also the roots of the game. If anybody else wants to comment or question or conversate about the teammates, of how do you talk to your players about that particular situation, and they have teammates like Ruben was just alluding to, that they concentrate on something else other than the game itself, and the team is starting to break down. How do you work with your team to help them work with their teammates as you're focusing on the game or focusing on the players on the field? How do you deal with the teammates?
I think in that situation, like the emotion that the team has from an unfair call, you can kind of use that to your advantage, in terms of getting the team rallied behind each other and together, and wanting them, to compete and show up and be more aggressive on the field or the court, specific to that scenario. So you can kind of, model it and say, we can't do anything about that, but we can focus on your own play and use that energy to compete harder.
Right. Now, before I get to S, I want to, when I started this section, I was talking about the history of your particular game. Do you find that the coaches that have come before you, the coaches that you look up to, the coaches that you've learned from, do they at least take the ROOT to heart to make you a better coach? That helped you become a better coach? That's the question.
Some.
Yeah, I've learned from some, like Emily. I've learned from some that, hey, wow, that's the kind of legacy I want to have, and I want to emulate them. And there's others where, hey, I'm not gonna do it that way.
Right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some that you knew the minute you stepped on the field what you could get away with or what the culture was. And then there's other ones where you were really unsure and everybody just kind of did their own thing. I've been on teams where the most talented players were the most obnoxious, and they decided how the rest of the, things were going to go on the team. And then I've been on others where the coach, is pretty clear about how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to respect other people. So I think I've learned a lot from each of them to help me in my coaching.
Excellent. So it takes me to self. Yourself. How do you see yourself forwarding the roots of the game. The roots of the game is what PCA. I think one of being a third principle. I think you say the best for last, and the principles. As I do like the first two, I think the roots make us who we are as coaches. I think the roots are, strengthen us. You can see different coaches doing different things, and if you're a young coach, it can help you grow. If you're an older coach, you can learn from different things. So how does yourself grow from the roots of the game as a whole? What do you take from it? Do you go to camps? Do you go to clinics? What do you do to be a better you?
I think you just have to model it. How do you expect your players, other stakeholders in the sport to really buy in to the roots if you yourself don't model them for your sport, your community? And I think, just like Ruben said, you learn from those that do it really well, and you also learn from those that don't, and you just try and get better each time.
Yeah. Now, Ruben, after that bad call, do you, and you get that horrible call against your team, do you, and say the outcome didn't go your way, how do you now handle that? And this is along the lines of self. So how do you handle?
Next time we play these guys, we're going to be better than them enough so that one call at the end of the game won't determine the outcome.
Gotcha.
We got to be better. We got to be better, because you know what? The refs are going to make some mistakes. And if we play a game where one call by the ref at the end might turn the outcome, then we weren't good enough, We then we would have been lucky to win. But we weren't lucky today.
All right. That wraps up my roots.
Well, let me just stop you for a sec. So the part that the tools part of roots is the part that you kind of missed there. So remember, I said each of the principal parts, the big takeaways for the coaches are the tools. So the toolkit that comes after the scenario that you just said,
Gotcha.
double coach moment of
Gotcha.
truth, modeling and teaching, self-control routine, narrated modeling.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you get us focused on those? Because that's what the coaches are expecting. That's what the coaches say. Well, all right, what do I do about it? How do I do this? It's great in theory. You got us talking about the theory, Allan, but how do we do that? What do we specifically do with my little 8-year-old soccer players to teach them how to honor the game?
Well, let's get in a group. And let's discuss this. Let's discuss this. So we have to model and teach this. So if we're in a group, you're all in your group, and let's get Kelly, who is, let's say, upset that she didn't start the game. And now she is just literally being mean to her opponents. How do you, as coaches, and Ruben and Emily, you're her coach, how do you teach her how to respect her opponents, even though she's upset about something that happened with her team?
I think, like I said before, I just model it, model some better behavior for her. Maybe, also, if she's not being nice, maybe adjust her playing time, so that I'm not starting her anymore because she's not being the teammate and team player that I expect of her, and have that conversation. I don't know. What do you think, Ruben?
Emily, you should be a trainer of passing off questions like that. I think there's a lot of different approaches you might take. For example, you might, if the player is exhibiting bad behavior, first of all, I don't think they should be on the field representing your team. So it's a chance for them. You could give them a chance to learn from the sideline or from the bench, and maybe you say, "Hey, I want you to watch number 28 on the other team and tell me what they do to support their teammates and what they do that, you should give them an assignment to learn from either an opponent that is a good model or maybe is not a good model or a teammate. Might send them home and have them watch, the game on TV that night and tell me which player that they think was the best teammate, and why. So, I think you give them assignments, you give them feedback. Oh, the other thing you can do is, the other thing we have to do is whenever they do start doing it the way you want them to make sure you catch them in that moment and point out that that's exactly what you're looking for and that's exactly what our team needs. Those are some ideas I might try.
Great. How about the self-control routine? Let's talk about that in your groups too. The coach, it's a high school game. High school game, it's to get into, get a good seating and playoff. And the officials are giving your best player bad calls. The past 2 plays, there was a travel call. Then we had 2 fouls calls against them. The kid is completely losing self-control. How do you model or talk about self-control with your players? Do you have a self-control routine that you use? And before you answer that question, I just actually went over a self-control routine with my son, who is 10 years old. And he had some bad calls going against him this past weekend. And one of them were that he was to look in the stands for me if he wanted to. And all we do was rub our arm. We just rub our arm and to help him get focused back in and get some self-control that, okay, play's over, move on to the next thing. Do you all have a self-control routine?
Allan, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why might I need a self-control routine? I think I'm a pretty good coach. I think that emotions are great. They're important. I think it's really important for my girls to know that I'm frustrated with their performance.
I agree with that. But do you ever see that that sometimes your behavior maybe can cross a line where, since they're modeling you, maybe you're having too much dialogue with an official during the game and it's taking away from the competition. So now the focus is more on the official, not the outcome of the game. They're constantly seeing you argue and debate. How do you balance that?
So you're saying my behavior might cause them to, like what you talked about in mastery, not focus on the next play.
Right.
Got it. I think taking a deep breath sometimes can really calm down that heart that can be going really fast.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, do you have any?
I just encourage all of them to just look at the big picture. Sometimes they just need to look up at the sky and just kind of get their brain out of the moment. Because sometimes when my players are frustrated, they're looking right at what's going on in either at them or the other players or the officials. So sometimes I just tell them to look up, just look at the sky and just clear your mind. When you look up, there's nothing there. Clear your mind and just refocus on what's going on the next play. If I get frustrated, I take a drink of water. I always have water with me. So I figured if I have a water bottle in my mouth, I can't yell. So I take a nice long drink of water.
Do you all ever use timeouts? Do you ever use timeouts for that particular situation? And what do you talk about in your timeouts?
I've taken timeouts with my team and we've just taken a big breath. Just if I notice everybody's just getting frantic and panicky or upset about something, I'll just call a timeout and just have everybody just not talk about anything. Just take a couple deep breaths, just relax, regroup, encourage them a little bit. But yeah, I've used that.
Okay. Ruben, do you have any?
Yeah. So we use timeouts for sure in volleyball. Sometimes it's usually to stop momentum, things like many sports, volleyball can be a game of momentum and runs. So most timeouts are used to stop runs and to try to stop a run. Mm-hmm. But you can also use it as a calming down, a self-control thing, a timeout. Just, okay, let's take a moment. Let's take a couple deep breaths. When we get back out on the court, let's be the poised team that we know we can be. So it can be used in that way too.
Okay. Good. All right. I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm definitely ready for some feedback because I know I stumbled a couple of areas. So throw it at me so I can get better.
Yeah. So let me just say logistically, and then I'm going to let Emily and Ruben give you some feedback. So the honoring the game principle is the last principle that we do. So you did the roots part and the scenario part, which was great. I called you out on the tools because that is the most important part of the principle.
Yeah.
That's what the coaches want to know as they walk out the door. So the wrap up, basically the wrap up of the whole workshop, the last part of the culture creation, that's a really big part of honoring the game too, because how you do things here, how you create the culture, do you create a culture of honoring the game and respecting all these areas, or do you let the kids decide? So that's a big part of honoring the game as well. And then we wrap it up with a video from Julie Foudy, if that's appropriate for the group that you're with, where she talks about the positive culture on her team and why they were so successful. And she attributes that success to the strong culture that they had. So all of that is part of honoring the game. And then the wrap up of the workshop are, the takeaways are just kind of the review of the whole workshop. And then the toolkit is just sort of, here's all the tools we talked about today, just in case they forgot about any of them.
Okay.
So it's just a way to get everybody refocused at the end of the workshop on culture. This is what it's all about. Here are the takeaways, here are the tools, and, go out and kick butt.
And then at that point too, I review all the.
But in terms of how you did your section, I would love to hear from Ruben and Emily, especially. I'd love to start with Emily because she hasn't seen you yet.
Kelly, before Emily and I comment, can
Yes.
Allan, can you tell us more? Not necessarily super specific, but just overall. You said you had some rough spots. Could you give yourself some self feedback before we go?
Yeah. I mean, when I was moving forward, I like to have more scenarios in my head rather than having public spoke before. To say and not be on point is not something I want to do. I want to be ready for a scenario. So when I do have my groups together, I'm like, all right, guys, here's, talking about self-control routine or something. Here's the thing, guys, get in groups and this is what the situation is, and be more snappy rather than trying to think of something off the cuff.
Yep.
So to speak.
Okay.
I think, especially from this, learning from what I've learned last week from you all, and I mean, everything's PowerPoint, but just everything should have a smooth transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing to the other.
Well, if you weren't planning to cover that tool slide, I could see why you would be coming up with scenarios and questions and an activity in the moment if you weren't planning to do it. And there's times Kelly knows this, Emily's seen it in workshops where the trainer is going to go off script and is going to do some creating on the moment, but it's on the foundation of a good solid flow, like you talked about. It's on the foundation of knowing the section, well, and that allows you to do some organic things within the workshop. So that's a good observation, Allan. Emily, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, just to add what you said, it's also about knowing your audience, like a little bit about knowing whether the youth sports organization, the population you're working with a little bit before, because you'll have known a little bit about what, sometimes you don't, but you hope to know a little bit about whether it's a parent community, a coach community, an athlete community. And if you have those scenarios and those challenges in mind, you can apply like, okay, so this has happened in your district. How might you use self-control, as a toolkit, for this scenario? I really enjoy your presence. I just have to say that. I think that if I were to sit through one of your workshops, I'd be like, 30 seconds, I'm in, let's go. And so super excited that I could join today. I think, for me, when I think about honoring the game, it is the last concept. And it's one of the ones that, for me, a lot of our partners really resonate with the most. because there's so much behavior that happens, on sidelines, and athletic directors hear from parents and coaches. And so this is one of those tools that really resonates, and Roots really is the root of that honoring the game. And so I did like how you went into it a little bit more, because typically it is used as, these are the roots. Now let's get into, how we might deal with these scenarios. Let's talk through these toolkits so you know what they are. I'll explain what they are, and then we can use them as part of this scenario.
Gotcha.
So, just in terms of that, what I would have liked to see is, trying to get through the full kind of concept, like Kelly was saying, and the legacy that they're leaving, as a coach. How do they see themselves?
Yeah.
Would their players want to be, would they want to be coached by themselves?
Gotcha.
That is a big kind of question. And so just moving forward, that's essentially what I would be looking for.
Okay. I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ruben, thanks, Em.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. I really like what Emily said about your presence, Allan, because that's, what, sometimes you know it, like, wow, this is a guy that I want to follow and I connect with, and sometimes it's hard to put into words. But Emily, I thought you described it really well, because I felt the same. I have felt the same way with Allan's audition, the last demo, and today. And you know what, boy, I don't know if there's a more important quality for a trainer. There may be some that are equally important, but because if you know this stuff and you've got great activities, but if people aren't, if they're not attracted to you and your personality and the way you are in front of a group, you're not going to get very far with them. So, Emily, is that kind of part of what you were? Did I understand you correct? Okay, so Allan, I feel like last time we bombarded you with a lot of feedback, and so yeah, I want to be cautious, but I'll mention a few things, and so with honoring the game, Kelly sometimes asks us, and so I get a chance to think about this. She'll ask us, okay, so what's the main point of the whole principle, if you were to sum it up, and so. With honoring the game, for me, it's don't cheat. And in PCA, we're not going to get in front of people and say don't cheat, because we're not that's not our style. And don't do this, don't do. But that's really what it's. Don't cheat.
Right.
Don't cheat. And then 2, take the high road. There's so many situations in sports where it can go this way or that way, and you can react like this, or you can react like that. Opt for the high road.
Right.
I think so. I think as a trainer, if you have those 2 things in mind as you go through the principle, it helps keep you on track. It helps you steer whatever comment Kelly or Emily or I make. It helps to bring you to that. So, the scenario, it's interesting your timing on the scenario, that you did it right after respect for the rules, because I think that of all the roots, ROOTS, which one do you think that scenario relates to most directly, would you say?
Out of the scenarios I gave?
No, not the one you gave, the one that's in the PowerPoint, the one where the coach has been writing, the opposing coach has been writing, the officials all. Mm-hmm. Which one do you think it relates to the most? Because you had us do it right after respect for rules.
Yeah. Oh,
not sure.
That's a good question.
Okay, so that, and that's a good answer. That's a good question, is a good answer to a lot of questions. Yeah. So for me, it's primarily about respect for officials. And then I would say, secondly, it's about respect for self. So I thought the timing of where you did that did not contribute to your flow as well as it could have if you'd done it later. But because we were talking about respect for rules at that point, and to me, that scenario doesn't have a lot to do with respect for rules.
Okay.
For me, but so I thought what Emily said about respect for self is a good thing for you to internalize. That respect for self means that you're the model. Okay. It's not, I mean, sure, respect for self is that you work hard. Respect for self is that you go to clinics, you try to be the best coach you can be. But for PCA, respect for self means that as a coach, you're the model for honoring the game.
Gotcha.
Okay. To me, that's the main point of the S in roots.
Gotcha.
When you talk about self-control routine, you can talk about it in terms of athletes. You can do that. But this is a workshop for who?
Coaches.
It's a workshop for coaches. And the book, The Power of Double Goal Coaching, is written for athletes or for coaches?
Double client. Wait, say the question again.
The book, The Power of Double Goal Coaching.
It's for coaches.
It's for coaches. Self-control routine is a coaching. It's a tool for coaches to control themselves so they don't lose so they don't embarrass themselves or say something they regret. Now, can you extend it to athletes? Absolutely. But for the purpose of this workshop, it makes most sense to talk about it in terms of a tool that you as a coach use. And Emily's question was good. Why do I need a self-control routine? I'm pretty good. I don't lose it. And here's another thing that Kelly knows that I do is in these sessions, when someone gets asked a question, I always think, okay, well, what if I was the trainer? What might I say? And I get the benefit of listening to your response, getting to think about it, to write down a couple things. If Emily threw that question out to me at my workshop, one approach I might take, because I think there's a lot of things you could do with that. Their question, you know which question I'm talking about here, Allan? The one I'd say, that's awesome that you've been able to keep yourself under control so long. I can guarantee you, if you keep coaching, if you coach long enough, there's going to come a time where you're going to need that self-control routine. And I don't know if it's next week or I don't know if it's 5 years from now, but when it happens, you're going to be glad that you've got that self-control routine. You're going to reach into your pocket. You're going to pull out your self-control routine, and you're going to feel really good that you continued to keep your composure in that challenging situation. So,
Right.
All right, Kelly. You want to add to the bombardment here that we're giving Allan?
No, it's excellent.
I think Allan can take it. Allan, I definitely agree. You've got all the raw ingredients to just do a fantastic workshop. And that's something that we can't teach you. So that right there is awesome. What we can teach you is content and a little bit of facilitation skills that can help you take what you're so good at and be better. Yep. So my comments are basically just logistics and a couple little things that'll help a lot.
Yep.
One of the things I hear from mentor trainers all the time, who are the mentor trainers are the people that go out with you for the first time when you co-facilitate at a workshop, and they give you feedback so that you might do half the workshop, they would do half the workshop. And they come back, I would say 9 out of 10 times, and they say the associate trainer, the new trainer who's you, needs to know the content better, needs to know the content cold, inside out, upside down.
Okay.
And as Ruben said, if you know it inside out and upside down for your sections that you're doing, and eventually when you do the whole workshop, then if you go off script, you can bring it right back.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Ruben. And it's really, all the content. You're living it, you're coaching it, you're breathing it, you're doing it. But the beauty of PCA is that we have content that has specific names, specific order. And I never, ever, ever like to tell people, hey, I want you to stick to the PowerPoint more. I'm not that guy. I'm not that person. I will never be the one that says, I want you to marry yourself to the PowerPoint and read every slide. You know that. I'm not like that. Yep. However, I think it is a little bit confusing when a slide would go up there. And if I didn't call you out, and I don't know what you would have done, but if a slide went up there, like if you clicked to the slide next that had honoring the game toolkit, would you have said, okay, we're done with honoring the game and been done? Or would you have said, hey, wait, let me go back to this. What's this going on? Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, in my opinion, I think, you did an awesome job. I think just over knowing what you're talking about, over knowing, it's not a great word. Preparing. Yes. That's a better word. Over preparing can help you stay, your mind is focused on honoring the game, all the aspects of honoring the game. Then if you go off or you get distracted or somebody says this really awesome question, that's great. Then you can go back to, okay, let me stop you there. Let's get these tools out of here because this is how I'm going to help you do this. Also, when they're going through this scenario, I love using this scenario to go through ROOTS. That's one of my favorite things to do in workshops. As coaches are mentioning things, you can say, oh, that's a great opportunity for you to model and teach what you're showing. That's called, oh yeah, Emily, that's called narrated modeling. Oh yes, Emily, what we're talking about is a self-control routine. So you're using the terms when you're fielding the questions.
Gotcha.
So that when you get to that next slide, you don't have to go through and explain what modeling and teaching is. You don't have to explain a self-control routine. You don't have to explain narrative modeling, because you just explained those terms when you were doing it in the discussion. Does that make sense?
Makes a ton of sense.
Okay.
Yep.
And then also you're giving cred to the book, because those little flags that fly in from the side, that's in the book. So again, it's a way to say, hey, we have a book for you. All these things I'm talking about are in the book. We're going to highlight a couple of them. But again, you were sitting there trying to think of scenarios like, okay, let's say, you said get in groups. I want you to think about this. This is what happened. It was a bad call. Let them think about it. Hey, when's an opportunity in your sport where you need to model and teach respect for your teammates? When in your sport, when do you need a self-control routine? And the coaches are going to have better answers than you do, because they know their sport better than you do, and they know their team, and they know their league.
Right.
Because I've gone in sometimes assuming that the parents are crazy, and the coaches are like, oh no, our parents are great.
Right.
Our parents are incredible. And I'm all chock full ready to go with these scenarios where these parents are screaming from the sidelines and all that, and they're not.
Right.
The coaches are like, no, our parents are fantastic. It's the kids we have trouble with, or, so ask them, because this workshop's about the coaches and their needs. And if we try to plan and pre-plan too much in our heads, you're going to miss out on a great opportunity to learn from them and give them, they have a problem, we're giving them the answers. And that's going to be a successful workshop, because you're answering their needs.
Gotcha.
So in terms of that, the only other picky things I have are, be careful when you ask a group a question. I call them drop-off questions. So when you said, all right, you read the scenario and then said, how do you handle that? And you just stop. Everybody in the group is going, am I supposed to answer that? Am I supposed to raise my hand? Am I supposed to talk to a partner? Like, tell us, be intentional.
Right.
Turn to a partner and share with them for 30 seconds. Can I get a show of hands? How would you handle that? Somebody, you don't need to raise your hand, just call out. How would you handle that scenario? I want you to get in a group of 5 people that you've never met, throw your shoe in a pile, or whatever you want to do. But tell us specifically how you want us to answer that question.
Got it.
So that's my biggest picky thing. And then again, when you said look for an opportunity, like you said, get in groups, like, okay, get in a group. I like the idea, but then we didn't do anything with our groups.
Right.
So, just make sure, just be intentional and just be planned out and be prepared with exactly what you want people to do. And you're going to have them eaten out of your hand. I mean, it's going to be great.
Gotcha. It is. I use it loosely, not in a control way, but take charge of the room. Make sure.
Absolutely.
Take charge of the room. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got it.
You have to remember too, Allan, we are coaching coaches.
Yes.
So you have to go into this workshop as if this were your team and you're getting ready for the big game.
Right.
But even more powerful is you're coaching 30 coaches who have 30 players. So you're talking about 900 players you're impacting in your 90-minute workshop. That's a lot of responsibility on you. And we want them to walk out of here coached up.
Gotcha.
Like, okay, I went to this 90-minute workshop and Coach Allan gave me 25 tools that are going to help me make my players better. And we want them to understand them, simple, clear, organized. We don't want them to think, well, where do I use that? How do I use it? How's this going to work with me? I'm not sure, too much info. We want it to be clear, simple, organized, and we want them to have fun. We want them to be engaged in it so that they'll actually use it. So they're not just hearing you talk about it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about how I would use that. I don't know. He coaches basketball. I coach swimming. How would I use that?
Right.
So that's what we want it to be.
Got it.
So I'll get off my soapbox.
No, thank you. That was great feedback. It just
now here's my question for Emily though. How much workshop action do we have going on in the Albany area?
Well, I emailed Allan because I'm waiting for a contract from the City of Albany Recreation Department where we are going to be doing a coach workshop, hopefully in June if they can get stuff in time.
Okay.
And some junior tick stuff.
Okay.
So that's what's happening soon.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry.
No.
Emily, do you know the name of the person offhand that you contacted in the city of Albany?
The person I work with is the commissioner, so Jonathan Jones.
Oh, okay. I don't know that name. I coached basketball in Albany for a long time. I used to live in Albany, which is 20 minutes from me. So I didn't know if we had the same people in common. I could have said, let's push the envelope a little bit and get back to Emily already.
Yeah, well, it's not so much him. It's because it is a political system. It is city council members that are holding up the process. So those are the people that we are waiting on.
Good old politics.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is because, usually out of this, Allan, and I think I'm confident, and Emily probably feels the same, that you're going to do great the first time you get out there. We'll have you do half of a workshop the first time so that you can watch another trainer as well. But if there's not a lot of workshops in your area right now, I want to give you the opportunity to practice more with me if you have an opportunity before you go out.
Okay.
So
I would say take advantage of that because we don't have too many workshops going on in the Albany area, in all honesty. And so definitely work with Kelly.
Absolutely. I would love that.
So while we're waiting for more workshops, I want to keep this stuff fresh for you. So if you have an opportunity, I'd love to set up another demo like this where you can do elm tree mastery, or you can do filling the emotional tank. So you can really get it crisp and sharp so that when you do get an opportunity to go out, you're ready to go.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I will I'll send you an email saying that you're officially an associate trainer, which means you'll get congratulations. You'll get put into the system so that you'll be able to see the workshops that are coming, and I'll send them to you as well. Okay. And Sonia DeWitt is our trainer manager. She might have some details for you to get you in our system. But then in the meanwhile, whenever you want to get a chance, if you want to do it next week, if you want to spread it out, whichever, if you'd like to work on a couple of those other principles, I think it'd be awesome to be able to do that too.
Okay, you just answered my question. So we could do a week-to-week thing.
Sure.
Okay, that's awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, okay. That works for me.
I thank you for this. This is awesome.
Good. Well, I'm excited. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I know I'm gonna. You can't be successful by yourself, and I know having you all in my corner is going to be awesome. So
yes, you got a good chapter up there in New York.
Great.
Good.
And if actually, Allan, I know you mentioned that you do go down to the city. If you do know that you are down there, closer to New York City, let us know, or let Emily know, let us know, because we can plug you into workshops closer to the city too.
Yeah. Okay. It's, because I frequent the city a lot. And so, a 90-minute, PCA seminar for the weekend, go down, do some PCA stuff, and then go hang out with the family later on in the day sounds like fun to me. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we have a lot of stuff going on in May, so.
Yeah. Did I send you the list of workshops this morning, Allan? I may have done that.
You did. I think you did. Yeah.
So check those out. If there's any double goal coach ones, because that's what you're ready for, double goal coach workshops that work for you, I can check with Emily and just say, hey, is this one a good fit? We'll see if the trainer matches a good fit. And, we can see if we can plug you in down there in the meanwhile too. So lots of options.
Yep.
I don't see any. I see one in Westchester, so that might be good to go to. That is this week, though. We have a lot of high school stuff going on right now, so not so many winning and life lessons, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to still do the week-to-week stuff with Kelly.
Great.
So that'll work.
Okay. Yeah, and as you know, things start slowing down as the school year ends, and over the summer it's more sporadic, but come like August, end of July and August, we hit the ground running and it gets really, really busy again. Okay. So if we can get you ready and sharp by then, I'm sure Emily will be eternally grateful.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
All right.
That's great to me. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Allan. Take care.
Thanks so much, Allan. Good to meet you.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.